One day, John Nath was wandering through the forest. As he was looking for his way out, he stumbled upon a lost treasure.
In the Shakespearean tragedy King Lear, Shakespeare uses onomatopoeia to express his grief over the loss of his favorite daughter Cordelia.
In the poem Loss, Carl Dennis uses alliteration, or the occurrence of the same letter or sound at the beginning of adjacent or closely connected words, and metonymy, the substitution of the name of an attribute or adjunct of that of the thing meant to emphasize the loss of a loved one. As underlined, Dennis writes, living lesser lives as a way to reiterate his feelings of grief. He later connects them, the people recently lost, to their house. The house represents the subjects as a whole.
In Mark Twain's Huckleberry Finn, an understatement, which is a figure of speech employed by writers to intentionally make a situation seem less important than it really is, signifies just how lowly blacks were viewed during this time period. This directly represents the loss of a life and loss of humanity towards an African American man.
Sonnet 99 by Shakespeare contains many hyperbolic statements, which are exaggerated statements or claims not meant to be taken literally, assonance, rhyme in which the same vowel sounds are used with different consonants in the stressed syllables of the rhyming words, and synecdoche, a figure of speech in which a part is made to represent the whole or vice versa. Shakespeare discusses how flowers have stolen his love's fragrance, which is clearly an exaggeration of how great she smells, but now she has lost it because nature has stolen this from her. Assonance is found in the line, if not from my love's breath, with the short O sound. Lastly, in an attempt to feel the connection again to his love, Shakespeare uses synecdoche when using her veins to represent her as a whole.
Sylvia Plath, the author of the poem Daddy, used situational irony, which is when something happens that is very different than what is expected, in her final line of her poem by calling her father Daddy, which displays her innocence similar to a young child, but then immediately calls him a B-word. This usage of situational irony displays her loss of temper and anger towards her father.
In the poem To Meet the Rose by Mabel Simpson, several literary terms are present. Personification, which is an attribution of human nature to animals or inanimate objects, is found in lines 3 and 4. White silence takes all things averse. In these two lines, white silence is personified, giving it human-like capabilities to take the speaker's possessions. A simile is also used in the second stanza, apparent when thought and mist are compared. This shows the speaker's recent loss. Enjambment, the running on of the thought from one line to the next, is seen in the same two lines, giving the impression that the subject at hand is far too important for a pause. In the poem, rhyme, which is the identity and sound of some part of words or lines of verse, has a clear A, B, C, B, D, E, F, E pattern. This puts an emphasis on words Simpson viewed as more important. Finally, the meter, or rhythmic element as measured by division into parts of equal time value, is an iambic dimeter seen through the two sets of unstressed stressed syllables in each line. The usage of short iambic dimeter is directly reflective of Simpson's feelings towards losing a loved one. The meter used in this case helps the reader develop the proper emotion expressed by Simpson. In this case, that emotion is sorrow and grief. The entire poem Nothing Gold Can Stay by Robert Frost is an implied metaphor, which is a type of metaphor that compares two unlike things but does so without mentioning one of them. Frost compares nature to life and that all things wonderful cannot stay and are eventually lost, like the changing of seasons in nature. His first line asserts a paradox when he says that nature's first green is gold. It is obvious that green and gold are not the same color, but this absurd statement reveals an underlying truth that the good things in life, represented by the color gold, will eventually be lost. Lastly, Frost makes a biblical allusion to Eden. Just like the flowers subsided or were downgraded to leaves, Eden also sinks. This refers to the biblical fall of Adam and Eve from the Garden of Eden and the loss of innocence and beauty. In the poem The Widow's Lament in Springtime by William Carlos Williams, there is no regular meter or rhyme, making it free verse. We also see a stated metaphor, which is a figure of speech in which a term or phrase is applied to something to which it is not literally applicable in order to suggest a resemblance when he compares sorrow to his own yard, meaning whatever grief he is enduring due to a loss in his life is very close to his heart, as if it was in his yard. Lastly, we see an oxymoron, which is a figure of speech that produces an incongruous, seemingly self-contradictory effect when Williams writes a cold fire. A fire is anything but cold, but he uses this to express his difficulty with forgetting what he has lost in his past versus living in the present and moving forward.
In Paradise Lost, John Milton uses blank verse, which is unrhymed verse with regular meter. He uses blank verse's natural flexibility in order to support his complexity while conforming to one structure of meter. As a result, he is able to use several allusions or brief and indirect reference to a subject matter of historical, cultural, literary, or political significance. This is seen when he terms the phrase circling hours, alluding to the Greek myth the Horae. The Horae used in this situation references the daughters of Zeus and Themis, who represent the 4 seasons. This allusion signifies time lost when Adam and Eve sin, ultimately leading to the loss of purity in the garden. Where's Mr. Knapp?
Help!
Hello?
Oh, there's my lip book.